Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Kuriboh Yugioh deck profile for Post-Supreme Darkness. We got the new Detonating Kuriboh as an OCG import in the latest Yu-Gi-Oh! Booster set, and with it I wanted to update the Kuriboh deck, a deck I always like to update on the channel, sticking with all the different combinations you can do in the deck. Detonating Kuriboh just helps as a great extender that can respond to your opponent's cards using this card in a very similar fashion that Yugi did with the multiplying Kuriboh against Pegasus in his final duel of the Duelist Kingdom, along with all the other cards like Curry Babylon, all the Kuriboh brothers, and even some other variants of Kuriboh in the deck also. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. For the new Kuriboh monster, we're running 3 copies of Detonating Kuriboh. If a Kuriboh monster card is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, quick effect, you can equip this card you control to that opponent's monster as an equipped spell with the following effect. The equipped monster's effects are negated. You can only use each of the following effects of Detonating Kuriboh once per turn. So whether you want to use Detonating Kuriboh as an extender for a monster resource on the field, being able to special summon this card onto the field, and then just have it sit there as a card that can react to an opponent's monster's effect by being able to equip onto that opponent's monster, or, as I said before, just an extension for additional plays from your extra deck or your other Kuriboh cards. We're also running 3 copies of the original Kuriboh, just having the hand trap option for battle damage, but also using it for a good majority of other plays in the deck, including the setup for summoning onto the field with cards like 5-Star Twilight, or also using it for setup with cards like Multiply. You have plenty of options in the deck to use with our Kuriboh main boss monster. For the other monsters in the deck, as I said, we are running the Kuriboh Brothers package as well, so 2 copies of Curry Babylon. It gains 300 attack and defense for each Kuriboh monster you control in your graveyard. You can only use one of the following effects with Curry Babylon once per turn, only once that turn. If you have more monsters in your graveyard than your opponent, you can special summon this card from your hand. During your main phase or battle phase, you can return this card to the hand. If you do, special summon 5 monsters, Kuriboh, Kuribi, Kuribu, Kuribe, and Kuriboh from your hand and or graveyard in attack position, giving you those added monster setup back onto the field in the form of Curry Babylon. But the big play here is to also get your Curry Babylon back in the field after you've utilized the 5-Star Twilight, which we'll go over in a bit when we get to the spells. For the actual Kuriboh Brothers, run 2 copies of Kuribe. It's always treated as a Kuriboh card, meaning you have, the option with your Kuriboh Detonating Kuriboh to special summon as well with the Kuriboh Brothers. Quick effect, you can discard this card, target a Kuriboh monster you control. It gains 1500 attack. You can tribute this card and you control, and one each of the cards you control, Kuriboh, Kuribi, Kuribu, and Kuriboh from your hand or field, to add 1 Curry Bandit from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Then immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon 1 Fiend monster from your hand. So then being able to grab and make use of the Curry Bandit gives us more access to monsters in the graveyard for us to set up, but also just an additional monster to be able to summon out. The 2 copies of Kuriboh as well. With this card, this card or another Kuriboh monster you control is destroyed by battle, you can special summon 1 monster with 300 attack or 200 defense from your deck, except for Kuriboh. You can only use the effect of Ba once per turn. You can tribute this card you control and 1 of each Kuribi, Boo, and Be, and Kuriboh from your hand and or field to special summon 1 Curry Babylon from your hand, deck, or graveyard, giving you access to the level 5 monster we mentioned before, but also being able to just special summon a monster with 300 attack or 200 defense from your deck means we can also just grab Detonating Kuriboh from the deck to use on the field thanks to Kuriboh, and then have that equip play without needing to special summon it from our hand. Also, the 2 copies of Kuribi. This card or another Kuriboh monster you control is destroyed by battle. You can add 1 spell trap from your deck to your hand that lists the Kuriboh card in its text. You can only use this effect of Kuribi once per turn, and once per turn when an opponent's monster declares an attack while you control another Kuriboh monster. You can change the attack of all monsters you control to 0 until the end of this turn. If you do, negate the attack. Added more as a Kuriboh wall, but also being able to give you search power for some of the one-of Kuriboh cards we are on the deck to then make use of afterwards with the search thanks to Kuribi, with the last of the Kuriboh Brothers being the 2 copies of Kuribu. With this card, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can discard this card, add 1 Kuriboh monster from your deck to your hand, except for Kuribu. Once per turn, quick effect, you can discard 1 trap, then target 1 face of monster your opponent controls. It loses 1500 attack to the end of this turn. So we don't really run any traps in the deck, so we can't make use of the trap discard, but we do have the added search for a Kuriboh monster using this card as a discard to do so. We're also running 2 copies of Wing Kuriboh for an added search search and protection on the field, because if this card on the field is destroyed and sent to the graveyard for the rest of this turn, you take no battle damage. Kuriboh with Wings can be special summoned with the Flute of Summoning Kuriboh, so then we can just use this quick play spell to summon this monster out onto the field as well. And 2 copies of Kuriboh. At the end of the battle phase, you can discard this card, then target 1 monster in your graveyard that was destroyed by battle and sent there this turn. Special summon it when an opponent's monster declares an attack. You can banish this card from your graveyard, target any number of Kuriboh monsters in your graveyard, and special summon them. So just being able to even just set up a Kuriboh wall makes it all the better for those added resources. So the more Kuribohs we have in the graveyard, the better the Kuriboh discard also is. The 1 copy of Curry Bandit for the search that we can make use of with this card, thanks to our Kuriboh. And then also the 3 copies of Skilled Brown Magician. Each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card. When that spell card resolves, maximum 3. You can remove 1 spell counter from this card, then activate one of these effects. This card gains 1500 attack and increases its level by 1. Or you can add 1 Kuriboh monster or 1 multiply from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So being able to search out Kuriboh monster gives us access to the variety of Kuriboh monsters using the Skilled Brown Magician in the added counter setup. It also makes it a potential level 5 monster that we can use to tribute for 5-star Twilight, or the attack gain as well by increasing its attack for this card and then removing that spell card to do so. The last of the main deck monsters that I run is the 1 copy of Dystopia the Despondent. It cannot be normal summon or set, must be special summoned from your hand or graveyard by sending 4 face-up level 1 monsters you control the graveyard. It cannot be special summoned by other ways. Other monsters you control cannot attack, and during either player's battle step, once per battle involving this card, you can banish 1 level 1 monster from your graveyard. Until the end of damage step, this card's unaffected by the card effects and also cannot be destroyed by battle. So being able to make use of the level 1 monsters we run to give us this additional big boss 5,000 attack point monster just adds for more of a power boost from the actual deck itself to swing into our opponent's cards. For the spells, we're running 3 copies of 5-star Twilight. If the only monster you control is 1 level 5 monster, tribute that monster. Special summon 5 monsters, 1 Kuriboh, Bee, Boo, Be, and Bo from your hand, deck, and or graveyard, but they cannot be tributed for a tribute summon. You can activate 1 5-star Twilight per turn, but still, you have the added special summon option with cards like Dystopia the Despondent, or just using them for extra deck resources, or using one of the Kuriboh Brothers effects, depending on the one you want to go for either cards like Curry Babylon or our Curry Bandit, having all these options available to you. And with all the Kuriboh Brothers we set up in the graveyard, the additional attack boost thanks to our Curry Babylon. We're also running the 3 copies of Flute of the Summoning Kuriboh, just to take 1 Kuriboh or Wing Kuriboh from your deck, either add to your hand or special summon it. So you can special summon out your Wing Kuriboh, you can add Kuriboh to your hand. You have varying card effects to use depending on the card you want to special summon out with this spell. And also the 2 copies of Multiply, so we can grab the Kuriboh tokens using just 1 of our Kuribohs to then be able to fill up the field with plenty of tokens. And then for the 1-ofs in the deck, well, before we get to the 1-ofs, because there is one other card that I run at a 3-of count, and that is Where Art Thou? If you control level 1 monster, add 1 level 1 monster from your deck to your hand, and during the end phase, take 2,000 damage if you do not normal summon the added monster. So you could have the special summon play go off of your Flute of Summoning Kuriboh, and then have your normal summon be the additional card you search out off of Where Art Thou? I like running this card in the deck now just because we have a pretty good special summon target in the form of Detonating Kuriboh to search out. I also now, for the 1-ofs, 1 copy of Detonate, because it can be searched off of Curry B, the 1 copy of Instant Fusion, and the 1 copy of Ready Fusion, so we have some fusion targets to summon out some level 5 monsters to tribute for 5-star Twilight, and then lastly the 1 Call by the Grave to finish off the spell lineup for the main deck. And then for the extra deck, we have a pretty generic extra deck for cards we can make with all of the different Kuriboh resources, like 1 Relinquished Anima, the 1 Link Spider, along with the 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 SP Little Knight, and the 1 Nightmare Cerberus, along with cards like Pentastag to use with Dystopia the Despondent for added piercing battle damage, the 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and the 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World, with our Xyz monsters being the 1 copy of Sylvan Princess Sprite, 1 Tantrum Toddler, 1 Slacker Magician, and the 1 Divine Arsenal Zeus, with our 2 fusion monsters for the instant fusion and ray fusion targets being the 1 Sea Monster of Theseus and the 1 Baron for the level 5 options. But then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, The added setup with our detonating Kuriboh, as I mentioned before, gives us just the play if we control a Kuriboh monster to special summon this card out onto the field. From there, we do have the rank 1 Xyz plays. We have the Link 2 plays as well. If you want to go for another route, depending on the cards you have in your hand, you could keep the detonating Kuriboh on the field to have a monster effect negation, and then set up cards like our Multiply to use with our Kuriboh on the field, or stick with the added detonating play to destroy an additional card. But I would say the better play would obviously be to use those resources for the extra deck summon that we can go for. Detonating Kuriboh just makes for an added search and setup play, but there might also be the potential cards in our hand that we can make use of with those monsters as well, like cards like Curryborn, to then be able to discard to grab back our special summon resource onto the field, and any other Kuribohs that may have been destroyed that turn, or just be in our graveyard for the banish of this card the following turn, and then making use of other cards in the deck like our level 5 engine to make use of our 5-star Twilight, which can give us the best play in the deck. So if we have this in our, level 5 monster of choice, whether we go for the instant fusion play, we can have the added setup with our Skilled Brown Magician as well, because then we can use the added setup with Skilled Brown Magician and cards like our Flute of Summoning Kuriboh, having the Skilled Brown Magician on the field, activating the Flute of Summoning Kuriboh to add the Kuriboh from our deck to our hand. This will then add the counter onto this card, and then also being able to remove the spell counter, have this card gain 1500 attack, and increase its level by 1. Then we can use the 5-star Twilight to tribute the level 5 monster, summoning out the Kuriboh, and then all of the needed Kuriboh brothers onto the field. And then from there, we have those monsters to be able to use for their own card effects, or the additional Link summon play from the extra deck as well. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, even though it was just one card, I definitely wanted to update the Kuriboh deck for the Supreme Darkness booster set, because it definitely is always fun to update this deck that Yugi had in the original anime. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.